probably like half the clients that we present to you move forward with investing in a tutoring club for their E2 visa. Why is it appealing? How do you make it easy for these E2 visa investors?
I think a couple of things. On the front end, I put it out there very quickly that this is a process and we want them to be very sure of their next steps. So there is no salesmanship, there is no pressure on our end. We want them to validate, we want them to look at the FDD and call the franchisees. The good thing is franchisees can say, basically anything. They're not really restricted in terms of what they're allowed to disclose or not.
Patrick Findaro here, co-founder at Visa Franchise and Vetted Biz. Today we have a special guest, Liam Powers. I think I've known for probably 9 years. We've had 10 or so clients at Visa Franchise. We've had him on the show at Vetted Biz, had him on the show at Visa Franchise as well on our YouTube channel. But it was time for an update. Liam, thanks for joining today.
Hey, you want to come to the US, get to E2 visa, L1, or straight out a green card? We've been doing this for the past 10 years, and we wrote a book. It's called Own Your American Dream. What is special about this book is that we went back and have spoken to 21 successful applicants who opened up their businesses here and who are continuing to live the American dream. Hear it from them, because they talk about their fears, their mental state, what went wrong, what went right. The entire blueprint is there. You could just buy the book right here. You can just read it and make up your mind. Continue your video.
Thank you for having me.
You have a unique story where, I don't want to steal your thunder, you go into it, but you started as a student at what is now a top tutoring franchise, and you became an owner at the franchise brand level with two other partners. So walk me through that. What was going on? How'd you start a tutoring club, and how are you now the big boss? One of the three big bosses.
Yeah, you're too kind. That is true. So when I was 16 years old, I came into my local tutoring club. There was a younger gentleman there, mid-20s or so, who was the franchisee at the time. His name's David. Fast forward, he's now my partner in this whole thing. He's now the president and CEO. And it was just a cool vibe. It was different. I'd been to other learning centers. I've had private tutors come to the house throughout high school. I was a solid performer, but I always needed that little bit of push, a little bit of uptick, and had a really good experience for the 2 years I was here. Went off to university locally, went to school about an hour away from where I grew up. And during the summers, I would come back.
You can name the school, top school in California.
It's USC.
And I see that behind you.
The top one there. Yeah, fight on. So, went there during some of the summers. I stayed in touch because I had such a good experience at the tutoring club location I went to. So I started to tutor, and then, was thinking the law school track, and then, moved away for a little bit, worked for a startup, and came back to this area thinking, I'll just tutor for a bit while I take my, LSAT and do that kind of thing. I never really left. It just kind of matured into something from tutor to, I guess you'd call it office manager, to then a director of that center that I actually attended. And fortunately, the stars aligned. The individual who was operating this center, David Hill, he was one of the best performing franchisees. And so we partnered together. He fortunately allowed me to buy a minority ownership stake in that location. We opened several others over the years. We also partnered with a wonderful man named Dan, great at the partner level as well, operated 3 centers at the time. And we were just doing this a little differently than the franchisees otherwise at that point in time had done it. Between us, our 6 locations were 6 of the top 7 or 8 every single year. And then at that point, we entered negotiations with the franchisor to become the franchisor ourselves. And now we're going on almost 10 years. This December, it'll be 10 years.
And remind me, it was Dan's uncle or father was the founder?
His uncle, it sounds nepotistic, but it's not. His uncle was the founder, and Larry was his name. His son, Chad, was the operator and CEO of the franchisor after his father, and that's who we purchased from.
And he founded it 45 years ago? When was Tutoring Club
1991. Founded in 91. Started franchising in 99.
Nice. Yeah, so it's been a nice 30-plus year trajectory for you guys. And tell me, there's a lot of different tutoring and education businesses, including franchises out there. What kept you going back to Tutoring Club as a student and wanting to work, you going to USC, being in Orange County, there's a lot of opportunities. Why'd you commit with this brand?
Yeah, it sounds cliche and corny to say, but there's something kind of family oriented about it. I think the difference, if we look at the landscape and the market of tutoring centers or, education companies out there right now, it's different in the following ways. A lot of other entities tend to focus on one particular age group or one particular subject, and they don't really establish that personal connection. Everything we do here at Tutoring Club is super customer service forward, as you would expect any legitimate company to be, but I would say we have two customers, and that's always been clear from the point that I was a student to the point that I was, a low level or mid level employee here, to the point I am now. We have two customers. Number one is the family unit, whatever that looks like. And number two is the student themselves, whether they're 7 years old or 16, 17 years old. And that always felt very special. And I think our staff is more, I guess, of a mentor than purely content experts. So the vibe, the energy, like it feels very unique relative to everything else in the landscape, and it's always felt that way to me, which is why I guess I've stayed. And it's something we pride ourselves on. And the fact that we can tackle, sure, all subjects, sounds kind of odd to say our specialty is our expansiveness and our depth and our breadth, but also I would say the ability to service multiple students of different generations within the household. What I mean by that is there's a lot of places you can take your 8-year-old, get pretty good service. There's some places you can take your 16-year-old for SAT, ACT prep, get good service. There's not often a place you can take your 16 and your 8-year-old and get exceptional service at the same stop and not have to find two different outfits for them. So that's something that I think makes this fun. Every day is different. Myself and my two partners, we don't have offices in a high-rise somewhere. We tend to operate out of one of the offices at one of the... Yeah, exactly. Literally right now.
I think I've been to like three of the centers, and one of the cool parts, it seems like it's pretty adaptable too. Like one's in a shopping mall, one was in a strip center. It seems like someone opening up a Tutoring Club franchise, like it's somewhat adaptable, and that you guys have made it work in different kind of layouts.
It is extremely adaptable. I'd say there's two primary footprints, and you nailed them both. One is your larger shopping centers, quote unquote strip malls, so to speak. You might have 50 businesses in here, a big anchor with a grocery store, coffee place, nail salon, Verizon Wireless, for example. Like those kind of things would be your neighbors. Or you have your micro strips, and those would be those little things off of a frontage road with 3 little, quick, fast casual restaurants in it, maybe a dry cleaners and you. So it's very easy access, very visible though. That's big for us is physical location, brick and mortar wise. We want to have premium locations because the way people find us, of course, referrals and all those things that you think of, but realistically, it's I saw you, and they see you in a time of need for their family. So yes, it's adaptable, but we do want to be pretty prominently displayed in whatever shopping center or micro strip center we go into.
Some of our clients, and with Tutoring Club, and then many of our clients at Visa Franchise, they're accomplished executives, but this is the first time owning a business. How do you help these type of first-time business owners really succeed and scale up?
It is interesting because a lot of people, I guess, scratch their heads at oh, you do quite well as an individual center owner or owner operator director of the place that you own in Tutoring Club, relative to this splashy, highfalutin corporate career you had in your past. It's curious to some people, but the reality is what's really cool about this is you have so many aspects of your business that you can tap into, and whatever your past strengths are, whether that's organizationally, whether that's motivating and hiring and developing your team, and or your sales orientedness, and or any other aspect of this, there are so many crevices of this business that you can really sink your teeth into and just take it to another level. But there is often, maybe one or two of those areas that an accomplished executive like you're talking about might not be as familiar with operationally. And the good thing about what we have right now, we don't have thousands of units, and we're quite, I guess you would say, picky on the front end of who we want to work with us and who wants to work with us. We want to make sure.
I've seen that. We turned down some of our clients.
Yeah, sorry. And I think that's out of a few kind of intentions here. It's quality over quantity. That's our philosophy in terms of enrollment. We're not a volume play when you're enrolling families. It's not, hey, every kid's the same, this is how we do things. You invest a lot of time on the front end to get to know the families, what makes them tick, and come up with something super individualized for them. The same is true of our relationship as franchisor to our franchisees. This does have a learning curve. You can very much front load that and learn 60 or 70% of the aspects of being a successful operator on the front end pre-opening. But that last 30, 35, 40%, that comes over the first 6, 7 months of operations, because you need that real world action and you need our coaching throughout that. So I guess our nimbleness allows us to be heavily involved with you until the point that you are truly ready to spread your wings and fly.
So Liam, tell me, what's it look like in terms of like the day of a franchisee? As a lot of these people are used to a 9 to 5 type work setting, and Tutoring Club's not necessarily that. And I'd like to hear from you and what the team dynamic looks like.
Yeah, I'd say we're more closely approximating mid-shift. It often surprises families when we tell them, hey, you can come in at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. And they think we are a 9 to 5, but realistically, kids don't get out of school, depending on their school and the area and the district, from about 1 o'clock on. So typically you're, operational from about 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Monday through Thursday are your prime time days. As you might imagine, Fridays are not the most popular for kids coming in. Saturday mornings can be a good time for you to operate your business, get kids to really take the material, spend a couple hours on it, and advance their skills much more quickly because they're not competing with school. But as far as being an owner-operator and or your team, you might get to the center around 11:30, noon each day. So yes, you're not starting at that 8:39. You're going to check messages, check your schedule, set up your day, confirm your appointments. And then from about, 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I'd say that's your prime time. It's when a lot of your volume's coming in. So we like to say you're on stage. Obviously you're making sure that the kids' programs are going well, that the staff is super engaged, that everybody's all set each hour, and we're making those progress markers that we have, promised the parents, obviously. And there's certain points in the day where you'll have a second to breathe and you'll be able to, look forward to your next day or set up your appointments for the remainder of the week. But yeah, during that prime time after school, it's you are on stage and it's quite fun.
Liam, you do have a pretty good hit rate with our clients. Like, I think it's probably like half the clients that we present to you move forward with investing in a tutoring club for their E2 visa. Why is it appealing? How do you make it easy for these E2 visa investors?
I think a couple of things on the front end, and this may sound antithetical to what a lot of people think, but I put it out there very quickly that this is a process and we want them to be very sure of their next steps. So there is no salesmanships, there is no pressure on our end. As you're well aware, a couple of the clients who ultimately move forward, this is a 1.5 or 2 year process before they actually put pen to paper and decided they want to take this jump. And that's okay. And from the very first call, I tell them that we're going to have as many subsequent of these follow-up calls as possible. We want them to validate. So we want them to look at the FDD and call the franchisees. The good thing is franchisees can say, basically anything. They're not really restricted in terms of what they're allowed to disclose or not. So I'm very transparent. When
they broke even, how much they're making, if
exactly.
They like you.
Yeah. And hopefully most of them say that. But, we're not going to steer them. We're not going to say, call these 5 people. It's, here's the entire list. Throw a dart and call 10. And probably 7 or 8 will talk to you. And that's the great thing. I think we've fostered such great relationships within our organization that I'm very confident when any of them get on the phone with a prospective franchisee, they're going to tell them the good. And yeah, maybe the parts they wish were a little better. That's only natural. But I would say that's part of the process, because I would just assume that any other individuals that these prospective franchisees are speaking to maybe a little more don't waste my time and a little quicker. But as we have that family dynamic at our centers, we kind of, I guess, portray that on the franchise as a whole, that we want to like the people we work with, because we are entering a relationship for hopefully decades, but at a minimum, probably 5 to 10 years. So we want to have the best relationships possible. And I think by being transparent with that, I'm equally happy when a family decides, we're not ready to take that jump after 6 months of conversation, because it would be not great to have somebody get into a situation that they didn't exactly want to do fully, and have to help them through that and deal with that angst and that pain on their side. Yeah, I would say basically that. But as far as what I think attracts them to our brand is, I guess an extension of that is the fact that we are heavily involved. The fact that we very much understand day to day what it's like to operate centers, because we were franchisees of this brand. We're not just some PE firm, some hedge fund guys who are sitting in a room hypothetically discussing what a tutoring center should look like. We've lived this. And my two partners did this. Well, now they're going on, 22 years, and I'm going on 14 years. So we very much can relate to them. I think that's huge.
Tell me, like, in terms of site selection, how does that all work? Do you help them? Do you have realtors that you work with?
There would be, I guess the easiest way to describe is a triangle in a partnership. Point number one is going to be the prospective, or I guess now soon to be franchisee, because at the end of the day, they're often parents, and or if they're not, they understand what a shopping center should look like, where families would feel comfortable and happy sending their kid. Number 2 point would be us, because we have like our blueprint or our matrix, so to speak, on the things we look for within 1, 3, 5 mile radii, neighboring tenants, number of schools, quality of schools. I mean, the list goes on. And then point number 3 is going to be a leasing broker. The reason it's important to enlist them, and that's something that the franchisee does, but we will help them vet potential candidates and whatnot, is they know their local area. They know the landlords, they know what's coming online, which may not be evident with a now leasing sign, but they know they didn't renew this lease, this tenant, and that's a great spot, and it would be great for our concept. So the three of us, we work together. We keep open communication, and slowly but surely, and we want to be deliberative about this process. We don't want to jump into a location that is subpar, because location is extremely important, as I've referenced already. So yeah, the three of us will work together. That can be a period of 3 weeks, can be a period of 4 months, depending on how contemplative we want to get with things.
And I imagine landlords assessing other tenants. Like, if I was a landlord, I think it'd be nice to have this type of business in. They're not going to have to do a crazy remodel. It's not some vice good that you're selling, and it's really helping the local community. And I'd imagine there's spillover traffic, after the kids go out, the parents pick them up, maybe they grab a bite to eat or something else if there's other tenants in the area.
You nailed it. And to your point, I think the biggest thing to underscore is our build out is extremely simple. About 70% of your suite space is going to be open format. That's the floor. That's where the tutoring is taking place. The tutoring tables and chairs are out there. Then you have an office, much like I'm sitting in. This is where we can have a little more confidential, meetings with the families and really understand the dynamic. Next door to this typically is going to be a testing room. Similar, we want to remove that from the main floor. That's where we can take a little quieter of an area to, do something that's going to be scored in an exam fashion, and a bathroom. That's it. So very contrary to what a lot of landlords deal with when it comes to restaurants and heavy machinery and, kitchens and corridors. Very simple build out, which I think is attractive to some landlords. But to your point, the wholesomeness of what we do, and also the spillover effect. Yes, we're very much often next to coffee places and sandwich places, so the kids definitely are customers of our neighboring tenants too.
Liam, how do you balance like the commercial versus the delivery aspect? And like, I'll give you an analogy. Like, I go to a gym, I try it out. Like, the personal trainer is also like trying to sell me, and it's like it's the same guy delivering the service that's trying to sell me a membership. And I think some of your peers, it's kind of a funky format too, where it's much more commercial. How do you keep it where it's more on the delivery and kind of the commercials more in the back, and it's focus on the kid? I know you do some things differently than your peers, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Sure. We'll see if this answers your question adequately, because there's a lot of things swirling in my head about, how we do things relative to the landscape of competition. Number one would be that we want to understand the family dynamics very quickly. I think the difference is this, as far as when parents reach out to us and a few of our other quote unquote competitors, we care to get to know them. If you call any number of your typical learning centers, you're going to have a 3 to 5 minute conversation with somebody who might be working at a call center who doesn't care to get to know if your kid does sports or music or acting or how they're feeling about school, or when things started to kind of go off the rails, if there is a multi-year gap in terms of their base knowledge and the teachers are really concerned. They don't tend to care about that. Their goal is get them in for a test, volume play. Like, just enroll as many people as who will call. We don't care what the long-term outcomes are. I think it's very clear when you call one of our centers. Number one, we have a lot of owner-operators who live and breathe this, and they have one unit. A lot of people think of franchising as, I have to get to 4 or 5 units or scale to earn the income I want to earn. That is not the case with us. So it goes hand in hand. When we invest our whole soul and like attention and energy into a single or sometimes a second center, we're more tied to that than if we owned 5 of these as a single franchisee, and it's a little less personal. On top of that, when you dedicate yourself like that as an owner operator to your center, you can often make, in terms of profitability and your take home, what 3 or 4 of our quote unquote competitor centers would make combined. So it goes hand in hand with the financial aspect and the true, we care what the outcomes are, because we're invested in long-term relationships. We're not trying to churn and burn, get a bunch of people to do 2 months of our service. A lot of our families are with us for multiple years. Initially, when you sign up families, there is a very goal-oriented mindset of what we're trying to achieve. And quite often, it's a 6 or an 8 or a 10-month time horizon to achieve those goals. So we have to be invested in the outcome, because if we're forecasting and saying in 8 months, we expect to be here, and we're not here, then we've failed. And that's going to reflect very poorly on the owner operator, on the staff, basically on our brand as a whole. So we kind of, as we have to be, I guess, particular about laying out the pros and the cons and the expectations and making sure there's alignment with our franchisees coming in, we have to do that with families too. And so I think it becomes clear to the prospective family who's debating signing up with us or somebody else that we actually are dedicated and invested in the outcome, as opposed to just, yeah, come in, twice a week for an hour and we'll see what happens and pay month to month and it's all good. That's not us.
Oh yeah, all in. And I think the owner sets the culture, and obviously there's culture that comes down from the brand, but you can only do so much. It's going to rely on the local owner, and after 18, 24 months, they could open up that second unit. But I do think that setting that culture is super important, and the community engagement, I know, is very important for bringing parents in, students in, getting the referrals for their siblings. What else should that rock star tutoring club franchisee? What would you want to see from him or her?
Yeah, so a couple of things. There's 2 worlds that individuals tend to come from loosely, if I'm defining this. Number one is the education world. So, we will get quite a bit of interest of current educators, former principals or superintendents, retired teachers. That has been a facet of one of our, so to speak, pipelines of people who are interested in our brand. The other is people who have business experience, whether that's in outside sales, inside sales, management, executive roles, SaaS, all types of things. And both of those kind of archetypes can certainly work in our world. I would say, let's take the business end first. We have a lot of people who are extremely business oriented and experienced, but they feel subconscious about, well, I don't know education, and I'm very interested in this world, but I don't have the expertise. And nothing could be further from the truth, because we can bridge that gap. That individual is somebody we really love to at least have the opportunity to work with in a franchising capacity, because they understand the grander picture. You're doing a great thing. You are educating youth. You, the owner operator, not directly, your staff is. So teaching you what to look for in your candidates, how to cultivate that staff culture to then deliver the message and deliver our programs. That's something we can help bridge the gap with. But realistically, you have to balance that with, you're running a business too. You're keeping the lights on, and you're trying to also run at a certain margin so that it is profitable and worth your time. So the business-oriented folks, they tend to understand that. The education folks, they come in with all the educational expertise in the world and experience, and often decades worth of it. Sometimes, though, that aspect that we can also bridge, but tends to be a bit more difficult to bridge and teach, is the business-oriented end of things, because the educators are so invested in this as their former career pathway that they become obsessive about the student outcomes on like a day in, day out capacity, which is wonderful for the students. But we always have to help them balance that with, but here are the parts of the business end of what you're doing, because you're not running a nonprofit, that we need to focus on. So those 2 can work. I'd say Rockstar, ideally what we have is somebody who has some client-facing experience, whether that's in a customer service capacity, heck, even somebody who was a barista in their past life. That experience of being able to operate quickly on the fly and be really customer forward, that's so helpful in our world. So we can have all types of people with different resumes and past experiences. The mission at the end of the day is we want to help kids achieve what they need to educationally, which can then help them with whatever they want to do in life, and also have a small business that they can pull certain levers and see how that actually is then played out in terms of outcomes. on the business side. So either way can work.
And Liam, tell me, I mean, the staffing, for me, the appeal is like you're managing educated people. That if you come from a business background, education background, it's kind of more of like a peer, like it's someone that could evolve up. And I think it's different than some of the other franchises out there. And not to sound too snobby, but a lot of our clients are successful business owners. Some of them went, graduated college, grad degrees. Can you talk a little bit about the type of staff and how you help franchisors with scaling the staff?
Yeah, so as far as
Franchisees.
you're right. As far as helping the franchisees scale their staff and who we tend to work with, it's kind of funny. I mean, just to be perfectly candid here, we're hiring and we are cultivating and developing educated, responsible people, generally speaking. Almost all of our tutors at least have a bachelor's degree in the field that they excel in. Some have master's degrees. Some are currently teachers who do this a few of the days of the week after school. So we're dealing with a pretty darn responsible part-time staff in terms of our, our educators who are on the floor here. Our requirement is not necessarily that they hold a teaching credential, because we've all seen it. We've all been through the school system, and teachers are generally absolutely wonderful. But sometimes there's somebody who's been doing it 33 years who's a little burnt out. And the kids see that and understand that from school. So we love something fresh, somebody who's maybe a little more relatable to them, but who absolutely can deliver and explain the content that third grader or that eighth grader needs to understand as well. What's good as the owner operator is, again, that responsibility factor. You're going to be here Monday through Thursday is your prime time. And as I said, Saturday mornings are a wonderful time for kids to come in and do 2 hours instead of 1 hour if they're on the younger side. It's also a great time to meet with families and talk about progress and talk about enrollments and those types of things. But you don't have to be here every Saturday. You can lean on your staff, the responsible ones who, can operate a basic 3-hour shift, make sure the kids are sat with the proper tutors, make sure everybody's being responsible and proceeding in the way we want them to proceed. So there's a lot of flexibility and freedom, I would say, as an owner-operator to not necessarily have to be here every second of every day. You need to be here during the points of the day that are critical to your business and critical to the student outcomes, as I referenced earlier, those prime times. Further, what is kind of the dream scenario of an owner-operator coming into this? They're going to grind for 18 months, 24 months, and they're going to build this business up to the point that they can then promote somebody from within or find it externally. But most of our franchisees who have hired a director who is then responsible for the administrative and management aspects of our business, you can promote that from within. Very often, that is a tutor who has shown just an ability at a different level to connect with kids and parents and be mature, be responsible, have some kind of charismatic bone about their body. You can then develop that person who understands how truly cool our world is into somebody who can run your business for you and allow you to then be more of a passive owner if that's your desire, and or go open that second one and then rinse and repeat and do the same thing and then become more passive and have your 2 dynamite directors running your 2 locations.
You guys have how many locations? 13 that you're operating?
It'll be 17 this year as we open 2 more here, affiliate-wise or corporate-owned-wise.
Yeah, and that didn't happen overnight. I think when we first met, it might have been 5, 4.
It was 6, combined between David, Daniel, and myself.
There's a clear path to, every other year you get one, and then now you've kind of scaled up more.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, our day-to-day is 95% operating the franchise. That's what we do. We have very capable people who are operating our centers, and obviously we'll check in with them, and if they have any urgent needs, they come to us. But realistically, those things are on autopilot, and we're able to focus our attention on making sure we have the most cutting-edge materials, we have the best systems for our franchisees, because it's a mutual benefit. It benefits our, affiliate centers. It benefits the franchisee centers. So we're also able, I think the last little tidbit on that I like about our unique relationship as wearing both hats is we can R&D a lot of stuff at our centers and make sure that these pilot programs are really successful before we roll them out.
Liam, any concluding thoughts? We covered a lot that I think is very valuable to prospective franchisees, but anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about?
I think if you, I would say this isn't a sales pitch, but I have encountered over the years individuals who are interested in franchising. They tend to cast a wide net, and they're interested in automotive, disaster repair, cleanup, 1-800 blinds, not to give a shout out to somebody who's in the industry, and education. So there's this like scattershot of interest that we have seen over the years. And I would encourage more individuals who are looking into potentially franchising, whether it's you want to dip out of your corporate career that's highly stressful and you're always on call and be your own boss, whether that is in one of those other arenas or our world, I would encourage you to consider education. And this isn't a direct sales appeal for Tutoring Club only, but our world is really cool. And the day-to-day that you get to live, it is. And if this is your second act in your hypothetical career and your second 10 to 15 year plan, it's cool to be around the kids. It keeps you young. It keeps you engaged.
Energy.
It's different than sitting in a corner office and not really engaging as much with what the future is going to be. So I would consider it. I would encourage you to, yes, cast that wide net. And for the people looking purely at education, I think that's wonderful. There are a lot of different nooks and crannies within this industry. So just make sure you're getting into an organization that you have a great relationship with the individuals you'll be working with long term, as opposed to just, they have slick advertising. You really have to examine the model, but more importantly, it's the relationships.
And vet it. Vet it with existing franchisees. Validate.
That's right.
Awesome, Liam. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to connect and speak with us.
Thank you very much. This is great. Thank you.